welcome back to this webinar training series. This is the final lesson on UML diagrams. How cool was this week, right? We learned a lot. Go ahead and let me know what you learned in the chat box. Matter of fact, let me know if you're even awake. Just say hi in the chat box. Nia says hi. Hey Nia. I just want to make sure you're out there, guys. Awesome. Well, cool. Now, let's go ahead and talk about what we've learned throughout this week. In lesson 1, I shared with you what UML is, Unified Modeling Language, right? And I even broke down the difference between UML and BPM, Business Process Models, which was great, right? So we got the foundational part. I shared with you how important UML diagrams is. And just to reinforce that, I got a special treat during this webinar. And we also talked about use case diagrams, which is a behavioral type of diagram. And it's one of the more high level diagrams and useful for analysts or even software engineers or quality assurance testers. In lesson 2, we talked about class diagrams and object diagrams, sequence diagrams, and state diagrams. Right, so we kind of showed the difference between behavioral and structural by really showing you the meat and the value of UML diagrams through these 4 types of diagrams. But there's one more diagram I wanted to share with you, and we're going to jump right on into that today. Package diagrams. That's right, package diagrams. So what are package diagrams? Package diagrams are a structural diagram really focused on supporting large models or large components within a system. So if you think about a software application as a whole, it's pretty complex. There's so many different levels to a software application that we want to break those down into smaller packages so that we can understand how the system works as a whole. As your app continues to grow, we want to be able to show different packages or different components inside the application in a meaningful way. That's why package diagrams are very useful, because applications tend to grow over time. Sometimes they become monolithic in nature, and it's very hard to understand what the application is doing without having a clear path of documentation along the way. Package diagrams helps us achieve that goal. They are logical groupings of components or models in an application. So it's not just, I'll put something together and make it look cool. No, they have a logical group, and they work together in unison to perform a set of actions or a series of actions within an application. Package diagrams are very useful for business analysts or architects or developers or even business owners. And I'll reinforce that again throughout this lesson. Now, to create a package diagram, we must first understand the different types of diagram components that make up the package diagram. And one of the simplest ways to create a package diagram is to start by creating a basic file folder object. So on the screen here, I have a basic package diagram, and it has a name, a package name, right? Account services, right? So this represents an account services package. Inside of it, we don't know what it contains. And for package diagrams, we don't care. We do not care what it contains. We can always look in the code and find out what's actually in account services, right? Again, more of a high level structural diagram. But at the end of the day, we know that in account services, it has something to do with accounts, right? Now, if we want to learn more about what's inside of a package, we can create a detailed element or object in the diagram. And it's represented as the basic diagram with the name of the package and a file folder, but we can actually see inside of the package to some extent. We show in the relevant components or classes or objects inside of that package. So this is more of a detailed approach, but again, we're not focused on attributes. We're not focused on functions. We're really focused on classes or interfaces, components or diagrams, or even other packages for that matter. The relevant ones, the ones that really matter to this particular package. So inside of account services, we've got nested components. Components are represented as billing information in this example and profile information. And then we've got a class inside of this package called session. Now, in lesson 2, I showed you how to create class diagrams where you had the name of the class at the top, attributes in the middle, and functions or methods at the bottom of the class, right? Well, in package diagrams, we don't care about attributes or methods. Again, we're not focused on the details. We just want the name of the class. So you can see in this example, you can have pretty complex packages. You can have classes or interfaces or other components or other diagrams, so on and so forth, right? So You don't want to go all willy-nilly, though. You don't want to nest packages too deep. Even though you can do that, it's best to only have a maximum of 2 packages nested inside of each other. Any more than that, you're getting too complex. Again, this is meant to be more high level. So if you're nesting objects or classes or components or packages or diagrams inside of a package folder, right? You want to be able to understand the scope and the depth. Now, I just shared with you a little bit about depth, and I want to share with you now about scope. Now, scope is defined as context. And if you're nesting objects or classes inside of other packages or other objects and things like that, you're automatically inherently creating what's called scope. So in order to access those nested objects or classes or whatever, we have to know how to access it through scope. And the way to do that is to create what we call a qualified name. And a qualified name is essentially the full path to accessing that nested object or class. Now, in this example, we've got our package account services, billing information, profile information are our nested components, and session is our nested class. So in order to access that scope, we need to be able to know the qualified name. So for billing information, it's account services, : billing information. In some programming language, it's just 1 colon, and in others, it's 2 colons. For profile services, it takes the same, : profile services, and of course, session, : session. So in order to access those particular objects or classes or packages or whatever, we need to be able to know the qualified name so that we understand how to access it because of scope. Now, packages can have relationships with other packages. Those relationships we call dependencies. So one package can depend on another package. And we showcase that using an arrow. Sometimes people say it's an open arrow. I like to use a closed arrow. It really doesn't matter as long as it's an arrow that shows the dependency. Now, there's 2 different types of dependencies. There are dependencies that import another package. Now, I'm importing package 2 inside of package 1, and there is access dependencies. I'm accessing something within this package for this package. Those are the 2 types of dependencies. And it's best to show what kind of dependency it is by just giving it a name. So in this example, the package account services is importing the entire package identity management. But you can also create dependencies with objects within a package and other objects within another package. So in this example, I've got session. So session is accessing the OAuth 2.0 component within the identity management package, right? So again, it can get very complex. It depends on your application, but you can see at a moment's glance how packages or components within a package can have dependencies with other packages or other components within the system as a whole. Very cool stuff. Very cool stuff. That is it on package diagrams, but I want you to remember these 4 points. Package diagrams are structural diagrams. They don't really share the behavior, right? They're high level, so they don't contain any implementation details whatsoever. I don't care about the attributes. I don't care about the methods. I don't care about visibility for that matter, right? It's best to have a maximum depth of 2 nested packages within each other. And they are, by nature, logical groupings of models or functionality or classes or objects for that matter, right? Very cool stuff. Next, I want to share with you how useful these types of diagrams are for business owners. Now, I said I had a treat for you. I want to share with you how useful these types of diagrams are for businesses or business owners, people who have no context on software development whatsoever. I've got a special interview, and I'm going to share it with you right now. Great, fantastic. So, Jason Hamilton, I've got you with me on this interview. This is fantastic. Good to see you, Jason.
You as well, sir. I appreciate you letting me participate and help out in any way, form, or fashion.
Absolutely. How's Nashville, Tennessee treating you?
You know, it's going pretty well, both on my day-to-day business, but also on my other business that you've been able to assist with. But life is good. Weather's cold, but it's also November.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Thank you, man. I appreciate the kind words, and thank you so much for sharing that. So in this interview, I want to share with the audience a little bit more about how
UML diagrams were useful for you and your business. Because we've interacted together, we've done some work together
Mhm.
on building an application for your business. So why don't you share a little bit about what your business does, who you are, and what you're hoping to accomplish with your new application first?
Yeah. So again, I appreciate everything that you've done for me and for our business as we launched it. So you worked with me and helped me develop a mobile app called Finade, Finaide, that in essence is a free web tool, a mobile app that allows students, families, counselors, advisors, anybody to be able to look at their financial aid award letters and be able to compare them in the palm of their hand in an easy, seamless, smooth process of an apples to apples comparison.
Yeah.
My career has been solely in higher education for about 20 years, and this has always been an issue. So the idea sparked when I was running a nonprofit to help students and families be able to do this themselves that didn't have a resource person like myself. So this app is wonderful in that it's very user friendly, it's very easy, straightforward, but it also appeals to people that like to look at numbers in a certain way, but also visually appealing and able to use. So easy, basic functionality, but it provides a huge service. So we officially launched about 2 months ago. It took a few months to build this out and to make sure that we had everything tweaked and adjusted. But every type of review and feedback that I'm getting at this point from all different types of prospective users is that they definitely see the need for it,
Right.
and that it's a wonderful asset.
Well, that's great, man. This stems from a passion and a career that you already understand. And you came to me and you said, "Hey, Kadam, I've got this great idea that I've got to get out of my head, and I got to build an application for it." And
Yeah.
we were able to put that out there in the marketplace. So that's fantastic. So in order for us to have gotten to where we are today with making the application easy to use and easy to understand and accessible for everybody, one of the things that we had to provide you was creating a formal documentation in the form of diagrams. And so we brought UML diagrams to you. And those were great diagrams, I think, because we were able to really understand what your business needs were, translate that onto a piece of paper or a document or diagram in that manner, and really share with you how that actually works and move the application process forward in terms of building and stuff like that. So you had mentioned to me during that time, you had a legal team that was helping you kind of get all the legal stuff set up. So why don't you tell us about the experience that you had with me in terms of UML diagrams and how impactful that was for you and understanding how we were building it, as well as how impactful it was for your legal team as well.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm a visual person as well as a visual learner. So being able to articulate to you and get the thoughts out of, hey, here's how I think the app should work. Here's the connected pieces. Thinking all the way through from the student user perspective, a parent, a counselor, but then also from the business model aspect of how do I bring colleges and universities incorporated into this, and how can we pull the data that we need. So as I look at the UML that you had provided to me, it was a visual way of putting things almost in buckets and showing how they flow and how they're connected to one another in order for this app to actually be able to sync and be as useful and as smooth and easy as possible. So it's highly informative for me as I sit here and I look and I was like, okay, well, how's this piece connected to this piece? And hopefully also helpful for you as the developer to be able to understand an industry that may have been somewhat relatively new as far as an educational mobile app, to be able to say, here are the needs. How do I translate that into a technical sense that for me, I will be able to understand, because I have zero coding experience or understanding the basics of that. So for me, it was extremely helpful.
Yeah.
As the app was developed and it got moving through the process, and we knew we were at that particular point, like you mentioned, started working with my legal team because I wanted to have everything buttoned up, so to speak, and make sure that as we were developing and they were working on terms of service and privacy policies and different aspects of that, due to the nature of this app, they needed to know and see visually how is data stored? And since it's intellectual property, how is it going to be protected from outside sources? How are we making sure that the consumer information is secure? How is it separated? Where does it live? And how are the different pieces connected? So when I got that question, obviously I turned to you and I was able to provide them with these diagrams, which pretty much answered all the questions that they needed. If they were wondering, how is an award letter information connected to the student and connected to a college? And if a college wanted to see that information, what would prevent them from seeing everybody's information? Even from a database storage solution options, and what is the best structure from a business standpoint of how we collect it, but where does it stored? How is it separated? Where are firewalls? And what's the best business practice to have? So for me, having that was not only beneficial to me as a business owner of understanding how the app works, but also for my legal team and making sure that as they drafted things, it was accurate.
Yeah, so with different functions in your business, different teams, this was most useful, most valuable for you in terms of understanding from end to end how we can create a big system in smaller pieces and then showcase them on a document and build it from that. So that's incredible information. And again, I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to create something like that for you. So we'll have a lot of work in the future, Jason.
Yes, we will.
Well, where can people find more information about Finade app?
So the easiest place to go is to our website, and that is www.finade, FINAIDE, app.com. So finadeapp.com. You can also find us on Twitter and Facebook at the same handles, Finade app. So share the word. Visit our website, request information, be happy to do different demos for different people.
You hear that, guys? Share that information. Yes. Okay, great. Thank you so much, Jason. I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
That's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
That was a great interview, right? So Jason was able to take those diagrams that I made for him and look at those and see exactly how we were building the application, and then take that to his legal team, people who understand legal jargon day in and day out but don't write a line of code, right? Really, really powerful stuff. This is why UML diagrams are so important. Now, it's not a requirement to create UML diagrams, but it's important to understand them because at any given moment, you can stop a business and you stop a team and say, hey, before we even write any code, let's really understand and deep dive how we're actually going to build it. And so UML diagrams are a great way to do that. So that wraps up today's lesson. So that wraps up today's lesson. Before I leave, I want to share with you a few resources that I use to create UML diagrams. The first one is a pen and paper, obviously. So it's great that you can write things down, get them out of your head and write them down on a piece of paper. Now, if you want to take that a step further and actually use some software, I recommend Lucidchart. Just go to lucidchart.com, sign up for a free account or a free trial, and you can start creating UML diagrams today. Okay, if you like this webinar training series and you want to see more, let me know. Give me some feedback in the chat box. Let me know what you like, what you didn't like, what we can improve on. Any questions that you have that I wasn't able to answer during this training series, just let me know in the chat box, okay? Now, if you haven't already, I really want you to sign up for our wait list for more courses and more webinar training series. Just go to blacktechacademy.com and click the Enroll Now button and fill out your information. All we need is a name and an email. And you'll get content directly to your inbox as we release more content and release more courses. We'll announce when open enrollment is, and that'll be very soon. But you'll be able to stay up to date with what's going on with the community, as well as grow your skills on your own. Thank you so much for joining the webinar, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.